Hi, I'm Jordan. I've gone back and forth about whether to write this. It's not something I talk about often, even in therapy, but maybe putting it out there will help it make more sense. If not to others, then at least to me. It happened when I was 17. It was late October, the kind of cold that doesn't hit you all at once but sinks in slowly through your sleeves and socks. I was sitting in the passenger seat of my mom's old Jeep, curled into myself, fingers tucked under my thighs for warmth. The heater didn't work right, or maybe she just didn't turn it on. I didn't ask. I'd learned by then that asking for things, comfort, answers, affection, usually didn't go anywhere good. She hadn't said much during the drive. Her jaw was tight, hands clenched around the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping her from coming apart. I stared out the window as we passed the edge of town, where the gas stations start thinning out and the trees take over. "Where are we going?" I finally asked, trying to keep my voice casual, even though I could feel the dread building in my stomach. She glanced at me, then back at the road. "It's a surprise." That was all she said. Flat. No warmth. Just that. A surprise. I didn't press it. I already knew whatever this was, it wasn't going to be something good. We drove until there was no more radio, no more signal, just the crunch of tires on gravel and the occasional thump of a branch brushing the side mirror. Then she pulled off the road onto a narrow path, dirt, not pavement, no signs, just trees all around. She stopped the car without warning, jerking us forward. My seatbelt dug into my collarbone. Before I could ask anything else, she was out of the car and opening my door. I remember thinking, maybe the car broke down, maybe we're hiking somewhere, maybe I'm overreacting. Then she grabbed my arm and pulled me out. "What are you doing?" I stumbled, my right leg giving out the way it sometimes does when I've been sitting too long. I hit the ground awkwardly. My knees caught the worst of it. She tossed my old duffel bag next to me. "You can come home when you're ready to stop acting like the whole world owes you something," she said. I just stared at her. "Mom, you can't leave me here." But she already was. She got back in the car, didn't look at me again. The brake lights blinked once through the trees, and then she was gone. I sat there for a while, too stunned to even cry. I wasn't completely immobile, but I had a nerve condition that made walking difficult, especially on uneven ground. No phone, no chair, just me, a backpack, and a patch of cold forest. At some point, I dragged myself over to this old wooden structure, maybe a deer stand. I curled underneath it, used my duffel as a pillow. My breath was fogging in the air, and I kept replaying everything in my head, wondering if I'd missed a warning sign, if I'd said the wrong thing, if I deserved it. I reached into my coat pocket and found this green damask handkerchief. My sister Ava gave it to me the year before she left for college. We hadn't talked in months. I clutched it anyway. It was the only thing I had left that reminded me of someone who might have loved me. Sometime later, could have been an hour, could have been 4, I heard something. A twig snapping. Not far. I went still. I didn't breathe. Then I saw him. Not clear, just boots at first. Big, worn leather ones with mud crusted on the sides. He didn't say anything. Just stepped into the clearing, crouched down, and offered me a half-full water bottle and a granola bar. I didn't ask questions at first. Hunger won out. Eventually I managed a whisper. "Are you a hunter?" No answer. He pulled a flannel from his pack and draped it over my shoulders. Then he started building a fire. Quiet, efficient, like he'd done it 1,000 times. I kept watching him, waiting for something, a name, a question, a threat. But he just stayed there, occasionally glancing toward the woods like he was listening for something. And then, just as quietly as he came, he stood up, pulled his hood tight, and left. I never got his name. I don't know why he was out there or why he helped me. But I do know I wouldn't have made it through that night without him. Eventually I was found, hikers the next morning, I think. The details after that are blurry. Hospital, police, child services. My mom told them I ran away. She still tells people that. Last I heard, she's selling crystals online and dating a guy 10 years younger than her. My sister doesn't talk to her either now. We've started reconnecting slowly, cautiously. I'm 23 now. I walk with a cane. I'm in school. I've got a roommate who bakes when she's anxious, and a cat named Miso who refuses to let me sleep in. I still don't fully understand why my mom did what she did, and I don't know if I ever will. But I keep that green handkerchief in my nightstand drawer. Not because it's magic or anything, just because it reminds me I wasn't completely alone, even when it felt like it. You know how she gets. My mom's voice was light, almost playful, like she was just ordering coffee, not rewriting the truth of where I was. Creasa didn't even look up from her phone. Ugh, I knew it. She always finds a way to ruin everything. And just like that, the lies settled into place. Smooth, easy. No one questioned it. No one called. No one checked. Back in the woods, I curled a little closer to the dying fire. My whole body ached. But the worst pain wasn't physical. It was knowing she hadn't just left me out here to freeze. She'd erased me. Not from the world exactly, but from the story she told about our family. That casual she ran off stripped me of every piece of truth I had left. And like always, I was the difficult one, the unstable one, the problem. I pulled the flannel tighter around me and stared at the soft glow of the embers. This wasn't just about staying alive anymore. This was about not letting their version of me win. The birds started up first. Low whistles, sharp chirps, like they were trying to shake the trees awake. The fire had burned out hours ago, but the ground still held a bit of warmth. My ankle throbbed, probably worse than the night before, and my stomach felt like it had turned inside out. But I was alive. I closed my eyes for a second and my mind drifted. It was spring, a family dinner, one of those mandatory attendance nights where everyone pretended we were close. I remembered the smell of something burning in the oven, maybe the chicken. We were barely through dessert when my mom stood up and held her purse in the air like she was presenting evidence in court. $600, she said. Gone. I blinked, confused at first until her eyes landed on me. Jordan, did you take it? It wasn't a question. It was a performance, and I was cast as the thief. No, I said, quietly. Of course not. She laughed, short, sharp. That's funny, because no one else would have. You've been behind on your bills, haven't you? She added, like she was doing me the favor of revealing my flaws for the crowd. I didn't say anything else. I just looked around the room, hoping, stupidly, that someone would speak up. Jonah, my cousin, who I once helped sneak a failed test past his mom, wouldn't even meet my eyes. And Creasa? She just scrolled, like none of it involved her. Later that night, I saw her sliding an envelope into her tote bag. Our eyes met. She didn't flinch, just smiled, like she'd won something. I never told anyone. What was the point? They needed me to be the mess, the liar. It made their lives easier. The minute I pushed back, I was labeled dramatic, sensitive, always playing the victim. And it wasn't the only time. Months later, I came home from physical therapy and found my journal open on the kitchen table, pages I never meant anyone to see. Creasa was reading out loud in a fake, whispery voice. Sometimes I feel like I'm screaming into a void and no one in this house hears me, she read, dragging the words like they were some joke. Everyone laughed, even Uncle Barry, who used to sneak me candy and tell me I was his favorite. Colin the poet, he chuckled. So dramatic. I stood there frozen. I'd poured myself into those pages. Doodles, confessions, pain I didn't know how else to express. And now it was comedy. Creasa flipped one more page. I just want Mom to see me too. She smirked as she read it, like my quietest hopes were beneath her. I snatched the notebook from her hands and walked away. I didn't write again after that. What was the point? Now, crouched in the dirt with ash on my sleeves and pain in my bones, I could still hear the laughter, their voices echoing in my head like ghosts that didn't want to leave. I pressed my hand against my temple, trying to push it all away. Not just the memories, but the weight they left behind. I tried to stand. Pain shot through my ankle, and I cried out, grabbing a nearby branch to steady myself. I used it like a cane and took a step, then another. Every movement hurt, but I kept going. I didn't run away. I whispered into the trees. I was discarded. The wind shifted, cool against my face. Leaves rustled nearby. That's when I saw it. Tucked under the roots of a tree was a folded piece of paper, white, crisp, deliberate. Not something the wind dropped, something placed. I limped toward it. My fingers trembled as I picked it up, my handwriting. It was a page from that same journal they all laughed at, but this page had never left my room. I opened it slowly, a sketch of a weeping willow leaning over a creek. I remembered it. I'd drawn it after Mom called me pathetic for crying during a thunderstorm. I couldn't argue that night, so I sketched instead. But on the back of the drawing, written in someone else's hand, were 6 simple words: "You deserved better. Keep walking." I didn't cry from fear. Not this time. This time, it was something else, like being seen for the first time in years. Sharp, quiet, real. I folded the page carefully and slipped it into my coat pocket. The sun had started breaking through the branches now, soft golden light catching on the frost. I shifted my weight onto the branch and started moving again, limping, but moving. That's when I saw them, tiny bits of paper scattered along the path like breadcrumbs. Some were singed, others were whole. A few had my name. One had a flower I used to doodle next to every entry, and one, folded clean, waited near the base of a mossy stump. I picked it up. It was my handwriting. But I hadn't seen this letter in over 20 years. A letter I wrote to myself when I was 12. I'd folded it tight and hidden it between 2 loose floorboards in the attic, convinced that if I buried it deep enough, it would stay safe, like a message in a bottle to whoever I became. "You are not invisible," it read in that uneven, messy middle school handwriting. "You matter, even if no one says it." I sank onto the mossy stump, gripping the page like it could anchor me to something real. Who found this? Who brought it here? Now? It wasn't just a message, it was a trail. Not left to scare me, but to remind me, you still exist, even if they tried to erase you. Against my chest and whispered the words again, this time like a quiet chant, "I am not invisible." Uh, when I looked up, I noticed a narrow path cutting through the trees, half covered in dead leaves and broken branches, barely visible, but it was there. I didn't hesitate. I limped toward it, slow and unsteady, wincing with every step. About a quarter mile in, I saw it, an old ranger station, sagging under the weight of age and vines. The door hung crooked on its hinges. I stepped inside. Dust and mildew clung to the air. Against the far wall, a crate sat like someone had used it as a table. On top of it, a laptop. Old, scratched up, but still on. A solar charger snaked from the machine to a patch of light through the window. The screen was glowing. I froze. The browser was open. A blog dashboard. My name was typed into the search bar. Posts filled the feed. Anonymous, but the words hit like a punch to the gut. Not cruel. Not mocking. Familiar. She was never weak. They just needed her to be. They called her dramatic when she told the truth. The date stretched back 6 months ago, last November. And the content? It was me. My journal entries, my thoughts, stuff I'd written but never shared, things no one else should have known. My mouth went dry. Someone had been watching. Not to hurt me, not to exploit me, but to document me, defend me. One entry read, "If no one listens to her story, I will. I'll remember every page they tried to burn." I couldn't breathe. My mind flipped through old memories. Faces. Who had ever seen me? Really seen me? And then I remembered him. A quiet boy from high school. He volunteered in the library and asked me about poetry once. He never laughed when I said I liked drawing trees. I don't even remember his name. Was it him? Was he the shadow I'd seen by the fire? The person leaving the notes? The one walking the path I didn't know I'd left behind? A shift in the air pulled me out of the spiral. Outside the broken window, fresh boot prints led toward a stream. They weren't mine. Someone else had been here recently, watching, waiting. I stepped back outside. My pulse pounded in my ears. At the edge of the clearing, just beyond the tree line, movement, a figure. Watching, but I didn't feel afraid. Not this time. I took one slow step forward, then another, not away. Toward. Whoever they were, they had seen me. Not the version my family paraded around, not the unstable one, the burden, the mistake. Me. I clutched the old letter tighter. I wasn't invisible anymore. I didn't wait. I moved. Down the slope, through ancient trees and underbrush, each step burning. But I welcomed the ache now. Pain meant I was still alive. Eventually the forest thinned. The sky cracked open above me, fading into hazy afternoon light. Somewhere birds called, indifferent to the weight I carried. And then I saw it. Pavement. Cracked, worn, littered with pine needles. Civilization. I stepped onto the road like a ghost crawling out of someone else's story. My legs shook. My breath came ragged. A mailbox. A fence. A gas station, flickering neon barely hanging on. Then just ahead, a diner. Warm yellow light glowed from inside. People talked, laughed, silverware clinked. The scent of grilled food drifted out. And then I saw them. I stopped cold. Through the window, my mother, hair perfect, nails painted, a wine glass in her hand. Sitting next to her, my stepfather, grinning as he told a story. My brother chuckled. Creasa tossed her head back, laughing. Sharing fries. They were sharing fries. Like I didn't exist. Like they hadn't left me in the woods 2 nights ago. Like I wasn't supposed to be dead by now. I stood there staring through the glass. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. Their bodies told the whole story. Relaxed shoulders, bright eyes, easy smiles. No panic, no concern, no tension. They hadn't reported me missing. They weren't looking for me. They didn't think I was lost. They meant to leave me. I was a loose thread they cut, and the sweater still held together, just fine. And then I saw her, River, my cousin, younger, the one who used to braid my hair on Saturdays, the one who always made space for me at family dinners. She wasn't laughing. Her face was pale, her posture tight, and her eyes met mine. Everything else fell away. Through the glass, her lips moved, slowly, clearly. "I'm sorry," she mouthed. Then again, firmer. "I'm sorry." My chest caved. I remembered now, weeks ago. She'd come into the room while Mom and Creasa were whispering in the kitchen. She'd lingered, paused like she wanted to speak, but didn't. She had known, not everything, but enough. Enough to understand something was off. Enough to sense danger. But she stayed quiet. I turned away before my knees buckled. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I didn't have anything left to give to grief. I walked past the diner, past the cars, past the neon sign buzzing against the fading sky. I didn't stop until I found an old bus shelter. Empty. One broken bench, a rusted trash can overflowing with fast food wrappers. I sat. Then let myself fall back, sprawled against the cold wood. Didn't care if I smelled like garbage, didn't care about splinters. I just stared at the dimming sky and whispered, maybe they're right. Maybe I should disappear. Let them win. Let them write the ending they wanted. But I didn't move. Not for a long time. I sat in that silence with nothing but the ache in my bones and the words still burning in my mind. You matter, even if no one says it. If no one listens, I will. Someone had seen it, not just read my words, but actually held on to them. They didn't delete the post, didn't scroll past. They stayed. That thought sat quietly in the back of my mind as I started to drift off. It wasn't the peaceful kind of sleep. It was the kind that comes when your body just gives up, when you've got nothing left to argue with. Then something brushed my shoulder. I flinched awake. A bus driver, mid-50s maybe, with kind eyes and a face that looked like it had seen a few too many late-night shifts, was standing beside me. He held out a thick wool blanket. Didn't ask anything right away. "You okay, honey?" he asked, low and careful, like he didn't want to startle me. I couldn't answer. My throat felt locked up, but I let him put the blanket over me. He even tucked it in a little under my chin, like someone might for a kid, and something shifted. It wasn't forgiveness or some huge epiphany, just a flicker of something like maybe I wasn't done yet. He didn't ask anything else, just nodded once and headed back to his seat. I sat there until the sky started turning that pale, washed-out gray. I think I could have stayed there longer, maybe all day. But whatever flickered last night, it was still there. He had pointed me toward a shelter a block away, said it gently like a suggestion, not an order. So I went. I still had the blanket wrapped around me, dragging a little on the sidewalk. The woman at the desk didn't ask much either, just offered oatmeal and a shower. I took both. Didn't say my name. Wasn't ready to be Jordan again yet. That name still felt like too much. Later that morning, I found myself walking through a town I didn't recognize. Small shops, wooden signs, flower pots with mums that were probably planted by someone who cared too much about curb appeal. I didn't know where I was, and I didn't care. My feet were moving like they knew something I didn't. I passed a coffee shop, a secondhand store, and then saw this narrow building with big old windows and a sign painted by a hand. The Bookmark. I went in. First thing I noticed was the smell. Old books, dust, a bit of leather. It smelled like quiet, like being a kid again, back when libraries felt like a safe place to hide. An older man was behind the counter doing a crossword. "Cold out there," he said without looking up. I nodded. "Just browsing." He looked at me, squinting a little. "You're Jordan, right?" My chest tightened. "Sorry," I said fast. "I think you've got the wrong person." But he was already heading to the back room. "Your dad left something here, told me to give it to you if you ever showed up." I wanted to leave. Everything in me said to go, but I didn't. I stayed right there, frozen. He came back holding this small, worn package wrapped in brown paper. It looked old, like it had been sitting there a while. He brought this in just before. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. My name was written on it in handwriting I didn't recognize, not in real life. To Jordan, for when you're ready. I opened it right there. Inside was a leather-bound. It felt soft, like it had been touched a lot. First page was a letter. Jordan, if you're reading this, then I hope you found your way back to yourself. They took so much from me. I tried to reach you. I hope this is how I finally do. I flipped through. Letters, birthdays, messy thoughts, little sketches of the willow tree I used to sit under. He'd tried. He really had. Pages and pages of it. There were court records, copies of voicemails, notes, one line just read, "She's being hidden from me. Her mom says she's not ready, but Kane deserves more than silence." I cried so hard the ink ran. I curled up on a bench near the window, the journal in my lap like it was the only solid thing left, and I read. Every word. He never gave up, even when it would have been easier. Even when I didn't know he existed beyond the stories my mom fed me. I don't know how long I sat there. The man behind the counter didn't seem to mind. When I finally stood up, I wasn't better, but I wasn't hollow anymore either. I knew something I hadn't before. Someone had loved me, even if they weren't allowed to say it out loud. I crossed the street to a tiny cafe. My stomach grumbled, not just from hunger, but something deeper, like I needed to move forward. I bought a tea and sat by the window, took out a small notepad I'd snagged from the shelter and wrote 3 words: start over, remember. 2 weeks later, I got off a regional train just outside Seattle. I had a thrift store coat, a scarf that didn't match, and a name I wasn't used to hearing yet. I found a cheap studio and picked up shifts at a print shop nearby. I didn't tell anyone about where I came from. Didn't really talk at all. But I painted. Every night. And in the morning, I'd stare at whatever I'd made and tell myself, not yet. Like the story wasn't done until it was. I submitted the painting anonymously to a local gallery that featured new artists. Didn't care about selling it. Just wanted someone, anyone, to see what I'd carried. The piece was a girl behind glass. Hands flat against the surface, mouth open like she was screaming, but you couldn't hear a thing. I called it The Forgotten Room. I went to the opening, stayed near the back, half behind a flyer-covered post. My hair had grown out. My limp was less noticeable. Nobody looked at me twice, until they walked in. Cresa, heels too tall, like she was pretending she wasn't uncomfortable. And my mom, wrapped in one of those cream shawls she used for PTA meetings and court dates. She looked exactly the same. They didn't see me, but I saw them. They laughed at stuff they didn't get, whispered behind their hands, probably judging the gallery snacks. Then they stopped in front of my painting. Cresa tilted her head. Weird, she said. Feels kind of familiar. Mom laughed. These sad little artists think being quiet is a personality. Her voice still hit like a slap. Same tone she used the night she pulled me out of that car. But this time, I didn't flinch. The host walked to the mic. Thanks for coming to this year's Emerging Voices Showcase, he said. Tonight, we're revealing the names behind each piece. My hands shook. I clenched a tissue in my fist. He went down the line until he got to mine. This is The Forgotten Room by Jordan Halverson. Silence. Then the sharp clink of glass hitting the floor. Crease's wine rolled toward the wall. My mom's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stepped forward from the shadows. Didn't smile. Didn't have to. You told me no one would ever listen to my story. They stared at it for 20 minutes. Not one of them looked away. When the host said my name out loud, the room didn't react right away. It was like the air had been pulled tight. No one moved. Creasa saw me first. Her expression dropped. Not shock, not even guilt really. More like uncertainty. Like someone who just realized the test had been multiple choice and she'd circled all the wrong answers. Mom, though, her face flushed in a way that told me everything. She wasn't embarrassed. She was angry. I had stepped out of the role she'd written for me, and worse, I'd done it in public. I didn't wait to hear whatever performance she had planned. I turned and walked out. My boots were loud on the gallery floor. Soft clicks that sounded steadier than I felt. The doors closed behind me, and suddenly everything was quiet again. Snow had started falling. Thick flakes, slow and heavy, the kind that melt on your eyelashes before you can blink. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was running or hiding. I just was. I had said something, without shouting, without naming names, and people had listened. Back at my little studio apartment, I thought that was it. I'd spoken my truth the only way I knew how, through a painting, not a confrontation. No press, no responses, no calls. I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. I dropped my bag, sat by the window, and figured I'd vanish again for a while. But the world has a strange way of not letting you disappear once you stop asking for permission. The first email came early the next morning. Subject: thank you for painting what I couldn't say. Then another, and another. A therapist in San Diego wanted to show the piece at a trauma awareness event. A lawyer in Portland offered help pro bono. A college student wrote, "You painted the part of me I never had words for." Then came the TikTok. Someone had recorded the reveal. You can hear the host say my name. You can hear the wine glass hit the floor. It was barely a minute long. Caption read, "Daughter paints her trauma. Family stares unaware." It blew up. 1.8 million views in 2 days. Comments piled up. She didn't paint this. She bled it. Her mom just stood there and laughed. This is why we listen to quiet kids. I didn't smile. I didn't cry either. I just watched. And then the messages started to shift. My old art teacher emailed, so did my former high school counselor. But the one that hit me hardest? A scanned photo. Me, 12 years old, arms crossed, standing in the hallway. I remembered that day. Mom accused me of skipping class. I wasn't. I'd been waiting to get cleared by the nurse after puking during gym. The message read, "You should know. CPS just reopened a file." I didn't know what to feel, so I reached into my drawer and pulled out something I hadn't touched in years. My old iPod. It was duct taped and barely alive, but it charged overnight. Under the voice memos was one labeled April 14th Porch. I hit play. "You're not mine anymore. You think you matter? No one ever cared." Her voice, unfiltered. I must have been trying to record a song. I saved it instead. Out of fear, proof, habit, that night I posted it. Just the audio, no caption, no tags, black background, just the date. By evening, my inbox had flooded again. Then came the knock. I braced myself. I thought maybe it was River or even Cresa come to yell. It wasn't. It was a man with wire-rimmed glasses holding a press badge. "Seattle Ledger," he said. "May I ask you about the forgotten room?" I closed the door gently. The next day, my sister called. Her voice had that sharpness she used when she thought she had the moral high ground. "You had no right, Jordan. You have no idea what Mom was going through." I didn't even pause. She was going through me. Click. That night, the gallery updated their Instagram. "We stand with survivors. The forgotten room will hang permanently in our Seattle South branch." I didn't repost it. Didn't need to. Later that week, I was back in the studio, hands in clay, fan humming, kiln heating up. It was quiet, but not the heavy kind. A quiet I'd earned. I was sculpting a phoenix, porcelain white, one wing cracked, perched on a scorched branch. I glazed the crack in gold and left it visible on purpose. When I placed it beside the forgotten room in the gallery's new wing, I wrote one line on the label, "Not everything broken stays broken." That afternoon, wandering a thrift store out of habit, my fingers brushed something familiar. A small porcelain bird, just like the one Mom shattered the night she accused me of stealing. I held it for a minute, then set it back on the shelf. I didn't need to keep that part of the story. Not anymore. The next day, an email arrived. Subject line, "Enough. Stop humiliating this family. You're twisting memories." That was it. No apology. No, "Are you okay?" Just more deflection. This time I didn't cry. I didn't get angry either. I just didn't reply. Her silence used to gut me. Now mine protects me. Then a new email. A nonprofit in Oregon. They ran arts programs for kids dealing with trauma. They'd seen the piece. Would I consider leading a group? I didn't hesitate. 3 weeks later, I stood in a community center in Eugene. 15 kids sat in front of me. Some stared wide-eyed. Others wouldn't meet my gaze at all. One little girl, maybe 7, was drawing a crooked house. I knelt beside her. "Is this where you live?" She nodded. "That's me, hiding behind the fridge." The air caught in my chest. I handed her another brush. "What would it look like if you came out?" She stared at the blank part of the page. Then she dipped her brush in yellow, painted a messy little sun. That night, walking home under a lavender sky, my phone buzzed. Subject. Subject. "You made it." It was from my old social worker in Seattle. I saw the ledger piece. I always knew you'd rise. Thank you for never letting them define you. I didn't write back. Not because I didn't care. I just didn't need to say anything. The sky was bluer than it had been in weeks. The air felt lighter. And for the first time in years, I breathed without permission. Sometimes the people who silence us the most are the ones meant to love us loudest. Healing doesn't always begin with an apology. It starts when we stop waiting for one. Have you ever had to walk away to protect your own peace? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. And if this story sat with you, consider subscribing. More real ones coming.